Hey guys, it's Nurse J at Nursing the Truth, and I hope everyone's having a great day. Well, Nurse J has been very, very sick, nursing the patients at the hospital, but also she got sick as well, and I've been down and out under the weather, so that's why I haven't been able to make a lot of videos. But to start off with, I want to say thank you to all my subscribers that have subscribed to my channel here lately. A couple of things that I do want to mention right off the bat is no, I'm not going to change my icon to Thoth because he represents truth and wisdom and knowledge. Also, another note, I will keep spreading truth and I will not shut my mouth. And that's another thing I wanted to bring out. Third and lastly, I am not an Orthodox religion. I do not subscribe to the three main religions, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Now, each one does have some cool things, but I do not subscribe to those. I'm a spiritual person. I go with the Egyptian spirituality and what it meant. So that's where I'm at in that category. I've had a couple of people ask me to research something, and you know who you are. Now, I had one subscriber ask me to look at Judges 1:19 through 21. I want to say thank you so much for that, because not only did that bring me to another topic, and it opened up a whole new can of worms. So we're going to dive right on into it. Now, this is going to be sort of like a historical record, like historical facts. What is historical and what is fiction? Now, I will be reading to you. If you want to take pen and paper, that's fine, and go look it up yourself, that's fine. Excuse my voice, I'm still coughing, taking medication holistically, so just bear with me. So we're going to go to Judges. I got my King James. We're going to go to chapter 1 and verse 19. Now I'm going to give you a backdrop about this. Now, in the first book of Judges, Joshua dies, and the children of Israel ask the Lord. Now, you got to understand the word Lord is like the king's language, Lord. It doesn't necessarily mean a God. It can mean a person, master, whoever they're following. So it doesn't mean a white bearded man floating in a sky. Now, and he says, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites? First to fight against them. Okay, so now we're going to give you a backdrop. This book tells you that Moses led his people out. He didn't get to Canaan, the promised land. And Joshua and Caleb were there, and they reached the promised land. Now, they're saying that we're going to go to Canaan. So Joshua dies. Caleb is taking over. So, what is the time frame of this? What is the historical value? Well, let's go to verse 19, and it says, and the Lord was with Judah, the tribe of Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. Well, wait a minute. First of all, if this God was omnipotent, omnipresent, he can do anything, flip of a switch, bewitched, bedazzled, If he was all powerful, then why is he running away from chariots of iron? Why cannot he drive out the people? Is God scared? That is a problem. Bring that to the Christian church. Now, moving on. Verse 20. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and he expelled thence the 3 sons of Anak. Well, Anunnaki, giants, they say. Now, if you look in the BibleHub.com or Strong's Concordance, Anak means long-necked men. They're large, they're tall, they're giants. Yes, they have found giants in the Middle East, tall men. Even the pharaohs were 8 foot and a few inches. Now, what you have to understand is, are they just throwing that in there to make their story? Was really the giants there walking around at that particular time? We don't know. But the writers of the day knew about demigods and the giants. Now, moving on to 21. And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. And the house of Joseph, they also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. So the Lord was with them, but he couldn't drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had chariots of iron. Wow, this God must not have had his shield of armor on that day. I highly encourage you to get a book. You can get it on Kindle. It's by Mario Buglino, talking about the Anunnaki in the Bible. And it's called The Book the Church Doesn't Want You to Know or Read About. Just go search his name, and it's on Kindle for $9.99. He was a Vatican translator, and he knew all kinds of languages: Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and so on and so forth, and he could write them. So, and he got let go because he was exposing the can of worms for what they are. Now, so subscriber, you have made Nurse J go on a quest, and even sick, coughing and running fever, I was religiously, no pun intended, looking through the scriptures, looking through historical facts, looking through ancient Egypt, and this is what I found. Now, let's go to the notes of Nurse J. And I'm going to show you what I've been doing. And this isn't all, people. We're talking on and on and on and on and on. So when I get a troll on my channel saying that I don't know what I'm talking about, I can back it up, babe. Can you? So let's go for it. First of all, what is the term Israel out of Egypt? And when was Israel ever out of Egypt? Well, do you know that the modern Sinai Peninsula has always been controlled by Egypt as far as the east of the Wadi el-Asharu? Wow. In Exodus 14:3 it says, "For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land, the wilderness has shut them in." See? They're wandering in the land of Egypt. The border of Egypt has really not changed in 4,000 years, being the Wadi el Arish, or the River of Egypt. The modern Sinai Peninsula has always been under Egyptian control except for the brief time after Rome annexed it in 106 AD and called it Arabia. Tinma, Timna, although there is sufficient evidence in Egyptian sources for Ramesside period of 1250 BCE military campaigns in the Negev, Edom, and the Arabah, the Hathor Temple of Tinma provides the first archaeological evidence for actual and lengthy Egyptian control of this area. Psalms 106, 7 and 8 says, "Our fathers in Egypt did not understand your wonders. They did not remember your abundant kindness." Now, the Wadi el Arish is the border of Egypt. Now, they say the time of the Exodus was 1446 BCE, and the time of their kings was 1000 to 500. The time of Eusebius was 325. The time of Madaba Map in 600 CE, and today as well. So, those 5 things I've given you, the Wadi el Arish is the border of Egypt. Now, the phrase study, out of Egypt. When did Israel escape from Egypt? They were already out of Egypt while sleeping in Goshen, they say. Exodus 12:51 and Deuteronomy 16:6. Egypt had a Migdol, Migdol, and that was called a military watchtower, permanently manned with lookouts at the 3-way intersection of the waterways at the Straits of Tiran, Tiran, while Pharaoh's watched. So Israel marched past the Migdols, the military watchtowers, only to be boxed in and turned back again and camp right in front of the military watchtower. Word was sent to the Pharaoh by messenger pigeon that Israel was shut into the wilderness and they were trapped by the mountains and the sea. And Pharaoh sent his army to their water destruction, while Israel escaped to the shores of the wilderness of the Sinai of Shur near Midian onto the Sinai 20 days later. Now, the land of Goshen and land of Egypt are both within the country in Egypt and under the Pharaoh's control. The land of Goshen is no other place. It is not your own little habitat. It was the land of Egypt and it was its province. So you cannot leave Egypt, Skilladoo, my darling, and go into Egypt and thinking it's your land, because it's not. Genesis 50, 7 and 8, Exodus 9 and 25, 26, and Numbers 32 and 1. In the 3 verses, land of denotes local states or provinces within the country of Egypt. The land of Goshen was a suburb within the country of Egypt, and the Hebrews and Egyptians were living in 2 distinct city areas, yet both were called lands, people. The land and the local district of Goshen was within the land country of Egypt. And this verse shows that 3 days in the wilderness wasn't within the land of Egypt, but even here, out of Egypt, means away from the visual presence of Egyptians when they did their sacrificing. And it says that Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, "Go sacrifice to your God within the land." But Moses said, "It's not right to do so, for we will sacrifice to the Lord our God. What is an abomination to the Egyptians?" So, that ought to tell you something. Sacrificing was an abomination to the Egyptians. Were they slitting throats and blood running down and enjoying the animals dying? The little lambs and goats and pigeons and turtle doves. Sounds like the 12 days of Christmas. Without the mistletoe, of course. Now, it says, if we sacrifice what is an abomination to the Egyptian before their eyes, will they not then stone us? We must go on a 3 days journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he commands us. And Pharaoh says, "I will let you go that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Make supplication for me." That was in Exodus 8 and 25 and 28. Don't you love these scribes? It's the funniest story. So until Israel crossed over the Sinai, either onto the Arabian Peninsula to the east or the land of Canaan to the north, they were still not yet 100% free from the greatest nation on the face of the earth at that time, my beloved Egypt. So, take that, you scallywags, and take your carpet baggers back to where they belong. Now, let's get to the real nitty-gritty of the Pharaoh. And you can tell I'm lit up because when I started searching this, my friends, it opened a new can of worms. And thank you so much, subscriber. Ill and weak and feebled, I was not giving up. Thutmosis III of the 18th dynasty, the Golden Age. They ruled, and Thutmosis III, your David, the Napoleon of Egypt, never lost a battle. Never. He conquered 350 cities. And my friends, all of Egypt, all of Canaan, Syria, Babylon paid tribute to Egypt under his reign. He conquered Syrio-Canaan at the Battle of Megiddo in 1456 BCE. And the Papyrus Harry 500 tells the story about how Jaffa, also called Joppa, was conquered by an Egyptian commander called Jehudi, which is the same name as Thoth. He presented a basket of 200, and as tribute to the Canaanites, he snuck in. And it says, then he smuggled his troops into the city and took it over, and in Jaffa, Thutmosis III established a permanent presence and built a fortress and stationed a garrison to protect the natural harbor. The gate tower complex is the only Egyptian gate exposed to Israel to this very day. And Egypt ruled over them of more than 300 years. And the Tel Amarna letters under Akhenaten reports of rebellion in Ashkelon and Gezer. Now, Egypt lost control of its strongholds in Canaan around the time of Ramesses VI. Though Egyptian occupation in Nubia continued, the loss of Asiatic territories strained Egypt's weakened economy and increased prices. So, Moses and Joshua crossing the Sinai Peninsula, you would be an Egyptian province. In the Torah, Moses is identified as a Levite. Also, out of all of Israel, only the Levites had Egyptian names. Moses, Phinehas, Hophni, and Hur were all Egyptian. Present scholarship on the question of who wrote the Bible bolsters this picture that the Levites were the group who departed Egypt. The 5 books of Moses were not written by him, but by authors. How many times do I have to tell you? Of 4 main texts known as J, E, P, and D, 3 of the 4 texts, E, P, and D, are traced to authors who were Levite priests, and these 3 are the only ones telling the story of Moses, Pharaoh, and the plague. The 4th main source, called J, the one that shows no signs of having been written by a Levite priest, makes no mention of the plagues. It jumps from Moses saying, "Let my people go," to the story of the event at the sea. The Levite authors emphasize that males have to be circumcised, which was an Egyptian practice. It was a practice for cleanliness. They write of God commanding Abraham to make circumcision the sign of the covenant, and they include the commandment for all the males of Israel to do so. The non-Levite J source does not command it, and again the connections with Egyptian culture are there, but only among the Levites. And the Levite authors are also the ones who insist that Israel must not mistreat aliens, which means foreign residents. The first occurrence of the word Torah in the Torah in Exodus 12 says, "You shall have one Torah for the citizen and the alien." The Levite source says it about 50 more times, and several times tells us why. Because we were aliens in Egypt. Again, the non-Levite source, J, doesn't command this. The most explicit reflection of the Egyptians' experience in Israel's culture occurs in all of the Levite sources and not in the non-Levite source. And scholars are briefly and broadly agreed that the Exodus story was composed in the 5th century BCE. The traditions behind it can be traced in the writings of the 8th century BCE prophets, but it has no historical basis. Instead, archaeology suggests a native Canaanite origin for ancient Israel, while the Exodus story is no older than the Babylon exile. Did you hear what I just said? This story is no older than the Babylon exile in the 500s BCE. There are no indications that some historical memories underlie it. The name of Moses is Egyptian, for example, and many scholars have found it improbable that a humiliating tradition of slavery would be simply invented. Egyptologist Jan Asman suggests that it has no single origin, but rather combines numerous historical experiences into a coherent story that is fictional as to its composition, but historical as to some of its components. Thus, the memory of Egyptian oppression may be based on the harsh treatment of Canaanites inside Canaan in the second millennium, when the region was ruled by none other than Egypt. These memories could later have been transferred to Egypt itself, and a new Exodus story created. Now, a historical Moses associated with a small group may have been later generalized into the Savior of Israel, while the history of the Hyksos, I'll have a video on that, but I've already talked about that many videos ago, but I'm going to have to refresh your mind. Who were Canaanite rulers of the Egyptian Delta in the 16th century BCE, may have formed the basis of the descent into Egypt and the Exodus. After a century of research by archaeologists and Egyptologists, the consensus of modern scholars is that the Bible doesn't give an accurate account of the origins of Israel. No, it does not. There is no indication that the Israelites ever lived in ancient Egypt, and the Sinai Peninsula shows almost no signs of any occupation for the entire second millennium BCE. Even Kadesh Barnea, where the Israelites are said to have spent 38 years, was inhabited prior to the establishment of the Israelite monarchy. In contrast to the absence of evidence for the Egyptian captivity and wilderness wanderings, there are ample signs of Israel's evolution within Canaan from native Canaanite roots. While a few scholars continue to discuss the potential historicity or plausibility of the Exodus story, for historians of ancient Israel, it is seen as no longer viable, and archaeologists have abandoned the investigation as a fruitless pursuit. So keep going to church, indoctrinate your children about these people and what they did. Now, I had to give you a little bit of backdrop about when Thutmosis conquered. How many cities did he conquer? The lands that he conquered? They can't even get the damn Exodus right. I've got so many years to tell you. They say, Wikipedia, 1446 BCE. Josephus relates it to the expulsions of the Hyksos in 1552 BCE. The Septuagint, 1512 BCE. Then we have 1306, 1450, 1440, and 1290 BCE. So who's writing this dickheaded story? That's what I want to know. The lies keep trickling down, and then people like me start busting up their historicity of ancient Egypt, and it all falls down. And I will expose this lie. Now we get to Joshua. Praise God in the book of Judges. The Hebrew conquest of Canaan was said to have taken 8 years to be completed. 1407 to 1399 BCE, but wasn't until 1404 BCE that Joshua began the conquest of southern Israel, followed by the conquest of northern Israel. And Aaron died the summer of 1407 BCE. Now, truth seekers, put on your little thinking caps, and I want you to remember the years that I just said. Please, this is imperative. If Thutmosis III, the Napoleon of Egypt, went to the Battle of Megiddo and conquered all of Canaan in 1456 BCE. How can Joshua in 1407 to 1399 conquer Canaan? Think about it. The years go down, 1456 to 1407. It's like 40-something years difference. So you mean to tell me that Joshua was going in to the land of Canaan that the Egyptians had the stronghold on, that Thutmosis III took over, and they paid tribute? This is a big fat lie when you start putting the pieces out. The stronghold of Canaan did not end until the reign of Ramesses VI. Canaan was under Egypt's rule for 300 years. This Bible is a lie straight from hell. Which there's none. So, in the story, I believe that what's going on is these Hyksos, the Canaanites, they came into Egypt and ruled in the Egyptians and made themselves Pharaoh, because in the scriptures it says that the Egyptians were afraid that they were going to multiply and overrun them. And boy, these suckers, they sure did. Egypt opened the gates and said, oh, well, you're starving. Come in. We'll give you grain. We'll feed you. And these were the deceptions of the Aparu, Hebrew. The same players that are in your Amarna tablets under this stupid, heretical king, Akhenaten, that was stupid and couldn't keep his head above water because he was so busy with his damn Aten sun disk that the governors were writing to him, his kings of Jerusalem. These Aparus, Habarus, Hebrews are overrunning us. Send archers, because at the end of the year, if you do not send archers, this land will be lost. So now, I do believe this writing in this book is talking about after the Amarna period, when these Hebrews took back Canaan. You see, because in the scriptures, these Syrian Canaanites came to Egypt, right? And they ruled. Well, then they went back to Canaan. But see, because the Egyptians kicked their ass and handed it to them, they were mad. We don't want Egypt ruling where we came from. Oh, but it's okay for you to go over to Egypt and smash them under the auspices of the little pastoral players. Battle began. I will be breaking down the Amarna tablets, and I'm going to expose these people. Because in one of the cities says that Joshua took Megiddo. Are you freaking kidding me? Thutmosis III took Megiddo. So if you're going to sit here and tell me that Moses in 1446, and Joshua in the 1400s came in and took Megiddo at that time. I'm here to tell you, you better look at your stuff and you better look at your history, because that is a big fat lie. And then when you open this big fat lie, it goes down and down and down. And I am upset today, sick or not sick. Doesn't matter to me. But I am exposing lies that we've been given. Why are we backing this up? That's okay, children. Love these people. Praise God that they're killing people. It's okay. The Lord said it was fine. But you see, Egypt, when they did conquer a place, at least they took them back to Egypt. They trained them. They gave them education. They gave them jobs. I do believe this, what we have, they're given this sucky time frame. But it was actually when they were fighting in the Amarna period, the stupid Akhenaten period. Oh, and one more thing before I let you go on this one. In the scriptures that we have, they say that Yahweh Jehovah was the one they were worshiping. But did you know the Israelite, Canaanite, Hebrews, whatever the hell you want to call them, were worshiping El-E-L in Canaan? And it wasn't until the 600s BCE that they turned to Yahweh, which was a son of El. Now, we have a more bigger problem, because I'm breaking it down to you. And truth seekers, you gotta search if you want truth. Please, I beg of you. You let El go. You get the Son. You worship him. So we get this Bible in 1611 saying they had been worshiping Yahweh Jehovah from the time of Moses, which is in 1446 BCE when they left, they say. But it wasn't until the 600s they started these people worshiping Yahweh. Until the 600s. But did you know they want to tell us, these Jews, these people today, they want to tell us that this Yahweh Jehovah is the almighty creative force that created everything in the world? But they didn't start worshiping him historically till the 600s? But he is the Son. How can the Son be the Most High God? Do you not know the implications? If we are sitting in the church, in the Protestant Christian churches today, and we are sitting there saying that Jesus is the flesh incarnate of Yahweh Jehovah in the Old Testament, then Yahweh Jehovah is a son of El. He cannot be the Most High God in the world. What is wrong with you people? Look within yourself. Find the truth within yourself. I've had enough. I've had enough of this mess. Yes, I have to holler. Yes, I have to get you and wake you up. Some of you are dead. When you go historical facts up against freaking fiction, you have to know what is true. And I want to specifically thank you, subscriber, for giving me this verse because it made me dig deeper. And it made me go deeper into the root of this problem. And you know who you are. Now, I hope that I have led you to a more clear understanding of things. Until next time, I hope everyone now searches the scriptures versus historical facts. And I'm not ever going to give up. Until I die, I will tell everybody what truth is. Hotep and Ashe and Thoth always says, when you search for the truth and you find the truth, then the truth will set you free, my friends. Hotep. See you later.